40 inches long, and it is about 15 inches wide. I've decided that I want it to have a little decorative part on the side that'll hang over the side. These are old wicker pieces that aren't in the best shape, and I think this will be good to help hide and to help keep it on the table, keep it from blowing off as easy, having these hanging out on the side. So it's a design thing as well as I think it'll make it work better. Because when we have a good wind, they do tend to blow off. So let me try this. Now I have a good Coats & Clark XP black thread. These are outside, but they're under a covered porch, so they're not as exposed to the elements as, let's say, outdoor furniture that has no cover. And my old thread held up perfectly. I had my old cushions probably 5 years, and they finally just faded, but I like this. I think it's going to add a nice little touch. Now let me put the other one on the other side. And all I did to find the middle, I drew this out, one of them out by freehand, then used it to make my other pattern. And to find the centers, because see, I don't spend a lot of time on stuff like this. This is fun stuff, and it's not so important. It's just something I like to make. I like to make the front porch look nice. And so I don't take time to cut everything precisely. I'm just enjoying this. So I'll sew it on with about a 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so now I have the two pretty ends, and trying to decide if I should make a little curve on these ends. I probably should. It would probably make it match better. So I'll put these ends together, then fold them in half lengthwise, and cut them both at the same time. And since I don't know how long this one's going to be, I'm just going to do an abbreviated curve like I did the sides. I keep the edges together here. Okay. Oh, I think that's nice. Now this fabric is an outdoor upholstery fabric, which means it should hold up to a certain amount of UV light. It's very thick, very, very thick and heavy. I could try to put this on my ironing board and trying to iron the seams up, but it's going to be difficult and I'm in a hurry. So all I'm going to do is eyeball it. I'm going to roll it twice. So if I thought I was good enough, I would do both rolls at once. But I'm not really sure I'm that good at it. So I'm going to roll it up a 1/2 inch. And I've already taken this measurement into account when I decided how much to cut. Okay, then I'll roll this back up a 1/2 inch. Okay, I had a thread. Yeah, good. I cut it. Had a thread caught there. All right. So roll this up a 1/2 inch. Just kind of easing it in with my fingers. The reason I'm rolling it a 1/2 inch, you might think that's a bit much, but I want the hem to have a little bit of weight to it so that it might hang better. Hems aren't just so that you have enough to let them in or out. Hems give weight to any item you're sewing so that it should hang better or lay better, lay flatter. So right up to this edge where the side piece comes on, I'll make sure my needle is in needle down position. Then I will just wrap around the corner and come on down this little decorative side piece. I was thinking about making tassels to hang from the side. I would have to see if I have enough DNC floss or some kind of pearl cotton that I could, or even matching yarn. I doubt I've got matching yarn. But let me see how it comes out. I'm just going to keep on around. And don't let me forget where these attached. I need to zigzag them. This is a heavy, in fact, I'm going to do that right now so I don't forget. But this is a heavy fabric, meaning it has big individual threads that wove it. And they're also, it is screen printed, so if a thread pulls out, I'm going to lose that bit of color. So I put my machine on zigzag, tightened up the stitch a little, and now I'm going down the side. If you had a surge protect, what are they called? If you had a serger, this would work beautifully. But I gave my serger away because I was never using it and it was taking up good space. So I gave mine away, and I hope the woman who has it is using it and enjoying it. But I'm going ahead and zigzag works just as well for me. It was not worth trying to thread all those 5 spools for the little bit that I do that would need serging. Alright, so those 2 edges are now done and protected. The rest will be encased in seams, in double fold seams. So we're all good. So now I'll come back to this side piece and I'll fold this up. And as long as you keep a pretty accurate 1/2 inch seam, oops, back to stitch 1, to a straight stitch. As long as you keep a pretty even seam, then your decorative shape should maintain the shape you cut. But what I'm going to do after I've sewn this down is then fold it again and stitch the final hem on it. Now I decided on the other end of this that I wanted this seam to go back in on itself. So I have to make sure I do that here. Alright, then come back to the side. Fold over my hem amount. Cut across that corner. And here I go again. And these stay out all year round. The first year I brought them in, but we have mild enough winters anymore that I like to go out and sit on the porch, and I like to be able to see these. Now, when I get to this corner, I've got this folded. I just bring that up, and then I can come right around the corner like this, keeping on going. And this is how you can make something that really makes your house look custom. It gives a nice, sophisticated touch for the price of fabric. And I don't know exactly where I bought this. It was probably from fabric.com, fatquarter.com, something like that. And in fact, I bought it last year, but never got around to making it. And this year, I'm tired of not getting things done. So I'm going to work really hard on this. I'm going to catch up with my to-do list this year. And this is mostly for me. I don't get that many people coming up to the door. But out here in the suburbs. But it's just when I go out to sit with my glass of ice water or iced tea, I have got something pretty to lean against. Because I've had this wicker furniture since 1992. What's the math on that? Quite a bit. Quite a long time. So, the furniture has probably seen better days, but from a distance, it looks really nice. And in fact, if I want this year, what I did before is got a couple cans of outdoor spray paint in white and just sprayed over them. And at the bottom of the feet, where it was kind of coming unwound, the rattan, I took and first put duct tape around the feet and then painted over the duct tape. You never knew. This is what I consider living well, where you don't have to have the latest, greatest, best, and it doesn't even matter. And you enjoy it, and you enjoy your life. Get creative. It's amazing what you can do. Find if you see somebody's thrown some out, as long as it's structurally okay, get some duct tape and cans of spray paint, and there you go. I got some fabric in today to make a new awning for my swing on the back deck. And the hurricane last year ripped the fabric. And so I bought some brand new from Fabric Warehouse Direct. It's called OtterTex. And it's waterproof and UV resistant, and I got it in a taupe, which is more UV resistant than the dyed colors. So I'm very excited to make that. Mark's going to have to help me because you have to take apart the top frame to get the canvas off the top. So I'll take that off and use that to make myself a pattern. Alright, my first row of hemming is all done. So now I'm just going to do the smallest bit I can take up like this, and then it'll be ready to put on the table. So here I go, let's start again. And this is just to make sure that all my raw edges are tucked in. And sometimes I might not even worry about that. But like I told you, this thread, it's big, thick thread, and it unravels easily. So, here I go. I folded this time. I folded up 1/4 of an inch. And that way, my seam allowance is all encased. I'll take this one a little slower because I want to have this relatively even. It'll show now. I want it relatively even. I want good stitch quality to hold this together. Then I'm just going to kind of tuck it gently with my finger to get a nice rounded edge. And around the curve I go. And you know, let's say you're doing this by hand. You're not pinning it like me. You get a place where you just don't like the way it looks. Then get your handy seam ripper and just open up that part and ease it in again. Let's say no matter how, couple times you try it and you don't like the way it looks, stitch it, baste it by hand, then run it through the machine and you'll have it. It'll look great. Okay, I want to make sure I get a sharp point at the end here. So I fold it, sew all the way across, cut my thread, come back, fold it at another angle. Now I have to be slow and careful here. That's a lot of heavy fabric for my sewing machine to handle. I don't want to break a thread or throw out the timing, so I just go very slow until I get past that big lump. Okay, sometimes you have to help it. It can get hung up on that big lump. Alright, so here I'm back to another corner. I want it to be rounded, so I'm just going to carefully ease it in. And don't forget, keep reminding yourself you're doing 1/4 of an inch here. Don't do a 1/2 an inch or it'll be all off. And I just kind of tuck in, ease, tuck in, ease. See how you just tuck it and ease. Ease it in. Okay. Keep reminding yourself 1/4 of an inch. And see, here is this end. I think it looks right pretty. And the black thread, because the majority of the background color, if you were to really analyze it, is black. So that works for me. And I don't try to keep a bunch of fancy color threads because it's really not that important. You never really notice the thread. And so I keep the basics, and almost every print has one of the basics in it. Okay. There we go. 1/4 of an inch. Coming up. Pull it back a little. Go around the corner. Here I go down this side, keeping that folded. I've decided it goes towards. Okay. I probably, if I had it to do over again, I probably would have tucked it towards the side that lays down. But just pick one way and keep it consistent. And I'll make sure I have a nice hot iron and iron this nice and smooth once I'm done. I want a sharp point here, so I do my 1/4 of an inch, sew off, then I'll sew all the way off carefully, because that's a lot of fabric. Then I'll tuck this under so I can keep that nice sharp point. So here I go. Fold it the best I can and put it near the edge. I don't want to hurt my machine or break a needle. There we go, carefully. Alright, make sure 1/4 of an inch. Keep reminding yourself a 1/4 of an inch. Coming on around. And you can see at 1/4, now that I sewed it 1/2 an inch and now a 1/4 of an inch. Only one thread shows from the outside, but all the edges are very easily encased and protected. And when I'm all done, I'll just get scissors, come along, nip any stray threads like this. Because remember, we stopped and started, so sometimes you have stray threads. Alright, so 1/4 of an inch here. I've got my sewing machine on automatic needle down. Makes it a lot easier to go around these corners. Okay. Past that corner, then straighten out your fabric and get ready to go down the other side. 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch. Now when I get to this corner, I'm going to try to ease it in and try to round it to match. This one got a little sharp, so I'm going to be a little more careful to round this one. So, I just keep tucking it back up. Go slow over any areas that are too thick. Your machine can handle it, just don't stress it out by trying to go too fast. This is an Elna 7200 that I've had for, oh boy, 13, 14 years. It's a good little workhorse. I keep it down here. I have two machines. I have a Juki 7 something upstairs that it's really my baby. I love it. But both of these machines have about the same features, and I do love them. I love having the automatic needle thread cutter. I love having needle down button. I love having a semi-automatic threader, needle threader, because as I get older, I don't call it automatic because if I have to hold the thread in place, then that's not automatic. So, but as I get older, it's harder and harder to thread those needles. Okay, let me get my fabric out of the way so you can see and I can see. A pillow. When we're all done, we'll look at the front porch with these on it, and I think you'll see. It looks very nice. Go slowly over those seams. Oh, they're getting pretty thick. This is the point, so I have to take it off, fold it nicely, and while I'm doing this, I'm just nip these threads so they won't be in the way. I fold this one this way. And I've been sewing along this edge. I don't sew right there where it's so thick. It doesn't need it. As long as I hold it down bottom where it's just a wee bit thinner, it will work fine. Then gently, and I have to kind of help push my fabric through at that point because that's a big, big lump of fabric to sew through. We don't have that much further. Oh my goodness, we're almost done. Look at this, we're almost done. So, this didn't take long at all. And that's why I like not doing anything fancy and pinning and all that. Because it would take you easily twice as long. And if I have somebody over that's going to notice that maybe this is not exactly perfect, that'll be the last time they come over. Okay, so finish off, stitch over it a little bit to make sure it's locked. And let's get pressing this and see what we've got. Okay. Got it laid out. Seams turned right. Now I'll give it a good press. Concentrating at these corners that to make that corner they get a little pulled up sometime, but that's okay. You'll just lay them flat. Give them a good press. Okay, so it goes lengthwise, and these will dip over the edges of the table. I'm noticing these are a little bit scrunchy because I went around that corner. So I'm going to go back and top stitch and fold this the way I want it to go and do a little stitch just inside the seam, that seam line, so that it just will have it behave a little bit better. So let's get that top stitch done. And that's a great way, anytime you have an area that's acting up, if you do a top stitch over it. In fact, I'm going to start with the stitching back right here where we went around that corner, just to have it, give it some little extra incentive to lay flat. And here I go, doing my top stitch, making sure the seam is this way because that's the side I decided I wanted it to go. Cutting off stray threads. And finish top stitching all the way down here. All right, that part is done. Now what I'm going to do, like I did over here, in fact, you can see how much nicer that lays when I gave it the extra stitching. And let me cut that stray thread. And it doesn't worry me that these little threads are wonky here because no one's going to notice that. All right, I come, start this back here, give it a nice firm stitching around the corner. What people will notice is if this doesn't lay flat enough. They really aren't going to notice the threads. Okay. Now I'm going to come and do the same thing here. I'm going to start around. See how that corner just lifts up a little? So let me see if I can do a little extra stitching. There we go. There's a little piece of fabric that kind of didn't get caught good in the sewing. So I'm going to make sure I catch it now. Let me get it tucked back under. I don't want anything coming apart on this. It's going to be out in the weather. And once you sew something that goes outside, I don't want to have to sew it again with my nice sewing machine. It's going to have grit and dust and who knows what on it. Unless I throw it in the washing machine, and I don't know if I want to do it. Okay, I'm going to end the stitch here. And now, let's straighten this up. We'll give this a little more support like we did the other sides. Okay. So now, they lay a lot flatter. I like this. I like it. Alright, so I'm going to get busy on, this is my table runner made in, what, 10 minutes? Not bad. Put this aside and let's get busy on the pillows. I've got my large pillow first, and this pillow is going to be a square pillow with a knife edge pleat. So what I'm first going to do is I've got the two right sides together and I've got the floral pattern going the same direction so that they will match. That way I can use it on either side. I know which way my floral pattern's going. I'm sewing with a 1/2 inch seam. Now, since I have to leave an opening to get the other pillow in, I'm going to do that right now while I'm thinking about it. So I'm going to put my backward stitch, go back, come forward, go back. Go. Okay. Then I'm going to cut my thread, come down a good way. Now, there's several ways you can put the pillow in here. One of the best ways is put it inside a plastic bag that you then squeeze the air out. Then you can squeeze it down to a small size, put it in, and then cut the bag off of it and it'll swell back up. So I'm going to leave, though, a good amount of space because I'm going to just sew that back down when I'm done. I'll get ready to start sewing at a 1/2 inch. I'm going to sew forward. I'm going to sew backward. I'm going to sew forward. And on I go. Making sure to keep it. And I just held this up. Did a pretty good job of measuring 24 inches. And then just cut. Because I don't have time to be prissy. I got stuff you wouldn't believe how many things I've got to do. My to-do list has gotten too long. All right. And I'm the queen of starting something and then not finishing it. So I'm determined to get this finished. I put a little bit bigger than a 1/2 inch down here because the fabric's not completely the same length. In fact, right here where I can feel it is too different, I'm going to trim it just a little to make sure I don't forget that this is a little off. Now, if you're a perfectionist right now, I'm driving you crazy. So you might want to go look at something else. But this is Deb's Do It in a Hurry front porch decor video. So just doing a 1/2 inch or so because we're going to do a knife edge ruffle. So I hope I didn't say knife edge pleat earlier, but well enough inside of this to make sure that once I flip it, it will not show. Because I want to be able to have this pillow be dual-sided, two-sided, so I can turn it. Alright, a little bit. But my first pillow was 18 inches. I left plenty of space. Okay. I got a little too off here, and I know that I'm very relaxed, but this is too much. So I'll back up to where it's a good 1/2 inch. And let's go back down. Now, I can tell that the bottom of the fabric is a little longer than the top. So what I'm going to finish this off by lifting it up, and my feed dogs will then work in the excess so I've got no puckers. And then I'm going to come back up this side like this, just because. All right. Now, what I'm going to do now is take my corners and trim them. Get rid of that excess, because when I turn this inside out, I don't want to be fighting with bulky corners. So I trim them reasonably close. I take that corner edge right off. One last corner. Okay. Now, I will turn this inside out. And what I do is I push the corner in, and then with my finger or a bone folder, push that corner in. Go do that to all 4 corners. Take and push them in. Then come to this one, push this in. And don't be rough, but be firm. If your stitches were short enough, your finger won't go through. All right, so now all 4 of my corners are pushed in early. Now I'll take it inside out and I go to each corner, make sure it's nice and square. If my finger's not enough to do it, get that bone folder and do it. Do not use something sharp or too pointy because it will come right through the end of the fabric. In fact, here we go. You see right there, that fabric is open. So before I go any further, I'm going to grab that corner, come to the sewing machine, and sew that corner again. I'm going to shorten my stitch length to make sure that I catch that corner good. So I'll come in just a touch here, and then come back down, turn this side, come back down this side. I do not want that fabric open. There's some things that I'm very relaxed about. Some things are a big no-no. And having an open corner, that fabric would unravel. It would be terrible. So now let me try that again. Push my finger into the corner. And you want to make sure it's tough enough to handle your finger going into the corner. Now it's well sewn. It has not come loose at all. I've got a nice square edge on it. Let's see. This corner looks great. All right, so that's all 4 of my corners. The rest of my corners are wonderful. Now, let me press this and I'll be right back. I decided I want to show you while I press this because it's not as easy as I thought it might be. I was trying to make sure that I pulled out the seam allowance when I pressed it so it would be right at a crisp, nice edge. But that wasn't that easy to do, so let me show you a shortcut. The shortcut is come in with the iron. This is the seam. Instead of trying to have it on the very edge, bring it in a little, like this. Then come along with your iron and press that seam open. Press it nice and firm. Press it flat this way. Now when you pick it up to put it on the edge, look how nicely it'll lay on the edge for you. And instead of having to try to fight and pull out that, now I just go along and give it a nice firm press. All right, let's go to the next side. Let me see if this one's difficult or easy. This one's better behaved, okay? Let's see. Yep, this one I'll be able to just press. It's not too folded in on itself. Some of them, they just don't want to lay out there nicely. Although this area right here is giving me trouble. Let me get in there and smooth that. Come back. Lay it nice and smooth at the edge. It's so funny. I have always made my draperies, often my bedspreads, and I've gone through so many phases where you had the ruffles on everything, but now we're more tailored. This one I can tell is going to give me trouble because it's rolled under like this. So I'm not even going to fight it. I'm going to push it back. See how I get the fabric pushed back? I'm going to push it back, go in there, and flatten that seam. Get that roll out of that that's going to give me trouble. Because remember, we're trying to see how fast we can do this. All right. Now, I pull it right out to the edge. It lays nice and pretty. It stopped fighting me. And I give it a firm press. But in days gone by, I'd have put a ruffle on this. I'm awfully happy we don't do ruffles anymore. Okay. Now this one, what I'm going to do is fold in that opening. Fold it in, tuck it in like that, and then give it a press. So when it comes time to sew it, it will be ready. Okay. All right. Now, you might look at this and think, wow, she made it too big for this pillow. But remember, instead of having just this little edge, I'm going to put a nice knife edge fold on this. So, what I'm going to do is go back to the sewing machine. Now, I'm not going to do this on where the opening is. So I'll start right after the opening. I'll start after the opening, right here. I think I'm going to do 1.5 inches. Now, to make sure that I stay accurate with that 1.5 inches, let me show you what I'm going to do. Alright, so I'm going to come up here and measure 1.5 inches to my needle, right there. Then I'm going to place this piece of painter's tape right there. Okay, that will keep me, instead of having to go and measure it as I go, just put this here. As long as I know I'm sewing right by that edge, then I'm good to go. I estimate where 1.5 inches is. I have needle down. I turn it. And it's pretty darn good. I'm just going to take one stitch to the right here, moved it sideways. And now I'm on track, and here I go down this next edge. So, up to where I think is 1.5 inches. I have needle down. I turn it. This time I might have to take 2 stitches to the right. So just move the fabric. 1, look, maybe 3. Okay, now I'm at the tape. And then head down this side. Let me guess how far down. 1.5 inches away. There. I'm going to guess there. It looks like I still have 2 stitches to the right. 1. Whoops. Well, it did a little more than 2, but that's okay. Now I head down this side. Guess where to stop here. Whoop, I went too far this time. Alright, I went ahead and cut my thread because I know I'm going to have to go backwards. And line this up with this tape and go down to where this opening just about starts. Okay, here we go. Alright, let me get my pillow. I'm making this pillow, this new pillow cover is larger than the old one. The old one was 18 inches. This started out at 24, but I think it should be, now that we've taken a 1/2 inch seam and we've done this knife edge ruffle, I think that it'll be a good size. So I've got to smush up this old pillow, and I'm leaving the old pillow cover on because that way I don't have to deal with any dirty stuffing inside. The outside is dirty enough, but also it'll take up some of that extra space in the new larger pillow I made. So let me get this stuffed in. As soon as I get it stuffed in, we'll do the last little bit. Okay, here is the pillow in the new covering. So what I'm going to come in here and do now is do a stitch to close this little edge. Just do a straight, I'm going to do a straight stitch along the edge. I don't care that shows. I don't want to take the time to do a hand stitch closure. Honestly, if this were going to be inside on my couch and this were going to be a formal pillow, then I would do a hand stitch closure. But this one's absolutely fine. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is come back and put this knife edged ruffle on. And it's not really a ruffle. What would you call it? I guess you would call it like a shadow edge. But I just come along running the pillow along that painter's tape. So I've got my edge correct. I run a little bit long past the other stitching, making sure it's all nice and locked. And here is that pillow. Really nice. This side's even prettier. And now that will go out to the chair. So we only have one pillow left to do. Let me get that ready. Okay, this pillow is going to be a little different. I did not cut it in two separate pieces. I left this fold here just to make it that much easier. This one is going to be to finish out about 15-16 inches. So I cut it about 18 inches wide, and I sew almost a ½ inch around to make sure I've got all the edges of the fabric. About a ½ inch seam allowance on this side. So this is the exact opposite side I was just doing. So all the way down to the edge, stop with needle down, let it turn. So just inside the selvage, down to about here, put on the back it up, sew backwards, sew forwards, cut thread, then move down about like this. Okay, then start sewing just inside that selvage. We don't want any of that white to show. That would mess it up. Oh, and I forgot to do something, so let me go back and do it. Cut my thread. Where I started sewing, I want to go back and forth. So forward, backward, forward. Good. Now cut my thread. Alright, so what I have to do now is cut these corners off, just like I did before. Makes it a lot easier. I'll cut some of this excess off here. And cut some of this excess off here. That's a lot to put into a little seam, and it'll make the seam look a little ugly. So, now I will turn, all my corners are trimmed, so I'm going to turn it in. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and press this, then I'll be right back to show you the next step. Okay, it's all pressed. I'm starting back here. And I think I want to do about 1 inch. Okay. So now I'll use the same piece of painter's tape. Place it right here. And that way if I follow it, I will have this edge. Okay, now turn it. Okay, turn it again. Okay, turn it again. I'm better at guessing 1 inch, I'll tell you. Well, this time I'll have to move down just, there we go. Okay, stop right there. Okay. Alright, now I will stuff this pillow in, and I'll be right back. I told you about using a pillow, putting the pillow in a plastic bag, and then squeezing it down, making it easier to put in the pillow form, because the plastic helps keep the air out. But put the back of the bag in last, because that's what you're going to pull out with. So you just roll it up, tightly squeezing the air out, then put the bag in. Keep squeezing that air out. This bag had a hole in it. If it were without a hole, it would do an even better job. But just keep the air out. This is how manufacturers get cushions into a pillow that fits so tightly. Okay, so now it's in there. So now it's just a matter of taking the plastic bag off, pulling the plastic bag out, and there. I do believe that made it a lot easier, because this was a very full pillow. This was more full than the last one, so it was a little more to squeeze in. Okay, so I just make sure every corner of the pillow is out to the corner of the new cover, like this. Give it a little shake. It's looking pretty good. Now, what I'm going to do is, let me get this edge down pretty good. Okay, so now I'm just going to carefully stitch this closed. Okay, the edge is now closed. Now I have to push the pillow down some so that I can have enough room to come in here and do that knife-edged border. So the pillow's out of the way enough. I just line it up to the tape, and here I go. Okay, so there it is, my second new pillow. Now, let's go to the porch and decorate the porch and see how it looks. Here is the one chair cushion. Here's the table cover. And here is the other chair cushion. I think it looks pretty good. I think the colors all work together. And I think it makes a nice looking front porch.